Welcome to Missionize with the Missions Guys, a podcast of the Arkansas Baptist State Convention offering biblical and practical insight and strategies designed to equip and encourage missions leaders to carry on mission work. The goal is to fulfill the Great Commission from a church's local community to the ends of the earth. That is why we missionize. Now here are your hosts, the Missions Guys, Sam Roberts and Clint Ritchie.
Welcome to Missionize. We're glad that you joined us for another episode and just grateful to have you along. And as always, if you like the content that you hear, hey, give us a like, share a link to the podcast with others, invite some friends to come along on the journey. But we are glad that you are here. I'm here with my co-host, Clint Ritchie. Clint, we just finished a huge day up in Jonesboro. With 1 day. You want to give just a little recap just for a couple of seconds there?
Yeah, I mean, as we're recording this, we're just a few days past 1 day.
Yeah,
and so,
yeah.
We're still in that 1 day hangover, matter of fact. And so if something is misspoken here or we disappear, we just fell asleep. But, we had a great day, about 1,550 probably Arkansas Baptists, we believe, there. Serving 160 plus ministry sites. The biggest number we celebrate is over 450 professions of faith.
Hey.
And so we just celebrate that work of the Lord and humbled to know that He used just ordinary Arkansas Baptists like us, like those that are listening, to serve and to point people to Jesus.
That's one of the purposes of our team is to help our churches, assist our churches in mobilizing members for the mission before us. And 1 day is an incredible opportunity to do that. 1,600 or so Arkansas Baptists gathered in one spot and spreading out over a 30-mile radius just to meet needs and share Jesus. You can't get any better than that.
No, you can't. And let's put it on people's radar just to be ready for our spring outreach strategy and serve local as we get close to Easter, so middle of March, but we'll start talking about that after the first of the year. But go ahead and put it on your radar right now.
Yeah. Hey, joining us today, we have a special guest with us we want to introduce to our listeners. As many of you know, most of our folks who listen in are Arkansas Baptist, and you guys know that we have had a change in leadership here at our state convention. We're just beginning just a few days ago. I mean, I think he's 1 week into this now. We have with us Dr. Mark Dance, who is our new executive director for Arkansas Baptist. Dr. Dance, thank you for joining us. We are grateful that you've chosen to be here. He was with us during 1 day. Had a great time just taking in everything about that day. Glad he got to experience that. Dr. Dance, would you just take a few minutes there? We're not going to put a time limit on it. Just take a few minutes to introduce yourself to our listeners. Who is Mark Dance and what's important in his life?
Well, that's a great question. At risk of overexposure, I'll give it a real try to make it brief, but I'm a pastor. That's the bottom line. I met the Lord in Mount Ida, Arkansas.
Mount Ida.
In 1980, when I was 15 years of age. My youth group from Tyler, Texas, where I grew up, went to camp there every year. And the next year, I surrendered to the ministry and was privileged to pastor churches for the first 30 years of my ministry, the last of which was Second Baptist Conway, Arkansas. And then Tom Rayner asked me to start Lifeway Pastors, which eventually became a Guidestone initiative. For the last several years, I've worked with Dr. Dilbeck doing the same thing, helping serve pastors and, prospective pastors and missionaries at seminaries, state conventions, associations, helping them start well, stay well, finish well. And yet we always wanted to live in Arkansas again. So we bought a house in Conway to move back there, continue my ministry at Guidestone from there. And in the meantime, Dr. Horn retired, and the committee gave me a call, and a discussion led to this week. So I just started, and I'm happy to be back in Arkansas. Happy to be part of the convention of churches here.
Well, we're glad to have you. Glad to have you back in the state, and glad to see you call Arkansas home. Arkansas is home for Clint and I. Raised here, born here, raised here. Both of us moved away for a few years and came back to the promised land. So we're grateful to be teaming up with you and serving Arkansas Baptist together. Tell us a little bit about your family.
Yeah, so after I met Jesus, I met Janet a few years later in college, and this began my second love. And I met her at Howard Payne, and she's a PK. I'm a DK, a match made in heaven, and we have two wonderful children. A daughter is 31, lives in Tulsa, and has our only grandchild, Carson, and then he's 5, and our son is 29 and lives in Waco. So we're glad to be back, and her parents as well. Our parents have been with us the last 30 years. He retired 30 years ago. Our dad is a retired pastor, and he's 95.
Wow.
And still going. Lives. He and my mother-in-law live around the corner there. So we're settled in. We're settled in. We're like the ducks that come back every year. We all migrate back here as soon as we can, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Well, important question. What's your grandpa name? What's Carson call you?
Yeah, Pops.
Okay.
Pops.
Yeah.
Same here.
Yeah, I got two of those
Same
here.
Got two Pops in the room.
There you go.
Well, Dr. Dance, over the last several years, you've been known as one of the main leaders in the Southern Baptist Convention, beating the drum about the importance of pastor care and wellness. We look at pastors. Burnout continues to be a major problem. Pastors leaving the ministry to protect their families. There's moral failings from folks that we looked up to. A lot of folks maybe even are resisting a call to ministry because of the issues that they see. And so you wrote a book called Start to Finish. Can you tell us what led to you writing the book, and how has that focus on pastor care and wellness driven your ministry in the last decade?
I actually had the seed of the book came in Jasper, Arkansas. I devoted a week of just Bible study and prayer, had nothing but my Bible and a notebook, and did a juice fast that week to rest and recharge and refocus. It was actually a part of the end of a sabbatical, and I was exhausted. It was my first sabbatical, and I did it like I did a lot of ministry, overdid it and planned too much, did too much, and I was tired at the end of a sabbatical. So I just took a week at that cabin. Somewhere in that week, what I call in the book a face mask moment happened, where God grabbed my attention like a coach used to grab players by the mate. That's illegal, by the way, now. But it worked.
But not back in the day.
No, back in the day. It was very effective. And, the great commandment is so obvious. It was to the scribe who asked Jesus what the greatest command was. He knew it. He quoted it every day, as his parents and grandparents did. But something crystal clear happened. All my priorities were clarified in that moment, because I had been aspired for 20 years. I'd been pastoring churches, aspiring openly to be a Great Commission pastor. There's nothing wrong with that. And by all measurable accounts, I was successful in growing churches and building the kingdom. But, Great Commission pastors are not all Great Commandment pastors with the relational priorities that God says, I'm first, right? And if you forsake your first love, you turn around and did what you did at first, Revelation 2. No big secret sauce here. And then love your neighbor from Leviticus 9. It just reminds us to love the people closest to us, which starts with your family. And it includes lost people, includes your enemies, to love everybody. But for me, I looked at my calendar and I saw that I wasn't scheduling those priorities. I had different kinds of starts to the day, and Jesus wasn't the first in every day, and Janet wasn't the second. My ministry had pretty much dominated my calendar, my mind, and so it was a good reset for me. And eventually I would write about it some, speak about it some. And when I started that ministry 11 years ago with Lifeway, I began to just teach more about those relational priorities. And eventually they asked me to write about my first book, write about my personal vision, like write about what you're most passionate about. Well, Jesus already clarified. First and greatest makes that clear. I want to write about what Jesus said. Yeah, I can't argue with Jesus and Moses. You shouldn't, right? And so I just started to write about those 2 commandments, and that's the layout of the book. First half is about the first commandment, relationships, and how to love God with your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Those are all separate chapters. And then the Great Commission, or the second commandment, which I think is a seedbed for the Great Commission, started with those kind of concentric circles with, my relationship with Janet and my kids, family, and friends, and literal neighbors in my neighborhood, and church members. And those are things that all pastors deal with. In our limited time and energy, we need to make priorities. And fortunately, God's given us a roadmap for those relationships.
Hey, Clint, as we know, just a few minutes ago before we jumped in here at the studio, Dr. Dance was speaking to everyone in the building, had our monthly time of gathering and the teams together and worshiping and sharing what God is doing among Arkansas Baptist churches. And then Dr. Dance spoke. There was something that I wrote down, and if you can kind of talk just a little bit more on this, you drill into it a little bit, and I think this is basically the essence of what you've said. I've never met a great commandment Christian or minister who was not also a great commission Christian. But I've met many great commission Christians who were not great commandment Christians or pastors or ministers. Yeah. I love that. That is awesome. Kind of give a word of encouragement, if you will, another word to the listeners who find themselves having a difficult time balancing, those Great Commission and maybe getting those out of step with each other.
Yeah. Thank you. I think it's played out pretty well with Mary and Martha. Martha's kind of would be that great commission leaders. Like we have to do this and have to do that and do the other, and we have all these things we need to do. And they were good things. They were all good things. They just weren't the better. And so Jesus says, well, this actually is the priority, me. And so these also bear out in the 10 Commandments. The first ones are about, no other gods, no graven images, don't mess with my name, don't mess with my day, so it's all about him. And I think that if we're not careful, we can get so task oriented that we lose. The erosion happens in the relationship, starting with our first love. If you're listening to this and you go, okay, I'm a pastor, a planner, or whatever, I'm a leader, and I don't have time to listen to a podcast about having my quiet time. Well, that's square one. There's not anything you're going to do today. If you're listening to this, nothing you'll do today is more important than loving God with all of your heart, soul, mind, and strength, which is every part of you. And so the Great Commission, we are for that. Arkansas Baptists are for the Great Commission. Sir. This is a missionized podcast. We want to share the gospel, and we want to get it right. We want to get it out. We are all for the gospel. But the thing is, it's hard to sustain the Great Commission if you haven't prioritized the Great Commandment first. And so first means first, protos. Megos means greatest or most important. CSB translates it that way. And so there's another translation, more of a paraphrase. NLT says the second and equally important commandment says, love your neighbor. And I like that paraphrase, except for that verse. That they just mess it up.
Yeah.
It is not what the text does not say equally important.
Not.
Right?
That's
There's
right.
nobody,
That's
including Janet, who gets to go in front of Jesus.
Yeah.
And there's nobody other than Jesus gets to go in front of Janet. And so this pecking order is what keeps a pastor sane and healthy and can provide fuel to be that Great Commission pastor. So my aspirations after that face mask moment in Jasper, Arkansas, were to be a Great Commandment pastor, and they still are today, which is what the book's about, so that I can have a sustainable ministry and finish well as a Great Commission pastor.
Awesome. That's incredible. Thank you so much. Hey, Clint, I don't know if you've noticed this or not. Dr. Dan's been with us a week. We've had several hours with him, with one day and then today, and other times, other conversations. There's one word that I've heard over and over and over again, and it's the word fun. I love the word fun. I got this sneaking suspicion that you believe ministry should be fun. So here's the question: as we travel around the state, we meet a lot of pastors, hear a lot of stories, struggles with leadership, family dynamics not going as they wish they were, spiritual dryness. What would you say to those listeners who find themselves in a difficult situation from the pressures of ministry leadership, about how do we make this fun?
Yeah. Well, first of all, realistic expectations that not every day is going to be fun. All right. Not every day is going to be fun. That's made clear from Paul to Timothy to preach the word both in season and out of season. And we all are going to have out of season experiences, whether it's a bad week, a bad month, or even longer. And so to make it enjoyable, fun, to keep the joy of the Lord, because we don't believe you can lose your salvation, but you can lose the joy of your salvation, and you can lose the joy of ministry. Then we have to focus on two objectives, which are also clearly in the Great Commandments, in the 10 Commandments, and that's the word. We have the word "go down." All right, that's a big word, not just on this podcast and in this in this ministry, but as Baptists, we focus a lot about going. But there's also a word "stop." And that's the fourth command. It's not any more negotiable than the go, right? We don't have to pray about going. You have to pray about doing evangelism or missions. Just do it. You might pray about where, but not if you do it. So I love that about you guys, is that you make the rightful assumption that every Christian is a missionary. And so we're here to mobilize you. Well, without exception, in the way you do it, how you do it, in the context differs, but go means go. Stop means stop. That's what Sabbath means. It's the only thing it means. Mm-hmm. It means stop. And it's a gift. The Bible refers to it as a gift. In fact, Isaiah twice refers to it as a delight, but it's also a command to be obeyed. It's a clear cease and desist order. And I think, to answer your question, pastors that want to prevent burnout or get out of it, if you're on the other side, need to just stop.
Good word.
If you think your ministry is going to fall apart in the 24 hours that you stop, then you have highly overrated yourself, because you are not the Christ. You are not the hero of our story, the hero of your church, and you can't change anybody's life, including your own. And so that's humbling but true. So if the church falls apart in those 24 hours, then that's on the Lord, all right? Or it could be on you for being, more of an enabler than an equipper. But regardless, if you want to sustain a healthy, fun life and ministry, then you're going to have to stop and rest. You're going to have to rest not just every week, and it doesn't have to be the same day that other people do, or even consecutive 24 hours. The Bible is pretty flexible on that in the New Testament. But you do have to stop. And every night you have to stop and recharge. Because if you're listening and you're one of those people who says, I only need 4 hours of sleep, then you have not gotten that from your doctor or anybody else's doctor, right? You're self-medicating there. You need the same amount of sleep everybody else does. And so we don't have permission to trash our temples. But if at the end of the week you're just out of gas, it might be that instead of saying yes to too many things, that you step back and go, I need to manage my life and calendar better. Because I've noticed, and others have too, I've become really grumpy. My fuse has gotten really short. It might just be I'm not getting enough sleep or I'm not getting enough rest. And sometimes there's going to be those ministry sprints, Sam, right?
Yeah,
There's going to be those ministry sprints like Clint was talking about. That one day didn't just happen in one day. It took a lot of effort on both sides of that day. And it was a harvest. And I said, last thing I said before I drove back from one day was, this was fun. We were tired, but it was fun. But then you go, you stop. You go and you stop. And there's no secrets, no shortcuts to resilience. If you want to, keep going, you're going to have to embrace your limitations and obey God's commands.
That's a good word. And I asked that question for Clint because, the last few days, Clint's just been grumpy. Stop, man, stop. Okay?
I was wondering who had talked to my wife and kids. I was like, they hadn't even met Dr. Dan Chad. And look, somehow they've gotten his number. So.
Yeah. They. I hope I said exactly what they told me to say.
Yeah. Well, and that is I thought I was the only guy that struggled with that until I talked to other pastors. So many of us are wired to go. It's hard to stop. And a struggle for a lot of guys is to get up and not just take off going, but to get up and stop and spend that time with the Lord. How did you learn to stop?
The hard way. Picking concrete out of my teeth. In other words, most of us learn the hard way by hitting the wall.
Yeah. And
I've done it enough times to finally, 15 years ago, I hit a wall that, the wall of walls. I'd run out of gas, and, everybody gets tired, and usually you can take a few days or even string a couple of Sundays together of vacation and shake it off. But 15 years ago, in the middle of a relocation in my church, I'd run out of gas, and I had no moral meltdowns or anything. It's just I was different, And basically, in all of the relocation and the fundraising and vision casting, I was still preaching 3 services in a row and doing funerals and weddings, and I just didn't stop. And my gas, I would find out I asked my doctor, and it's counterintuitive for pastors to ask people to help them. It took me. It takes some courage and humility to ask for help. But he was a member of our church, still is. He's my Sunday school teacher, actually. And I said, something's wrong with me. I don't know what it is. He asked me a bunch of questions that had, like how you sleeping, how you eating, what are you thinking, etc. A whole bunch of questions. And then he diagnosed me as clinically depressed. And I was like, well, I don't have time for that. A week later, a totally different person in my church, a licensed therapist who'd never met my doctor, had no knowledge of this conversation. Within a week, she diagnosed me. She came by, set an appointment, came by my office and said, 2 questions. Do you know you're clinically depressed? I said, yes, ma'am, I do. I just found out last week. And she said, are you taking anything for it? And I said, yes, ma'am, but I don't know if it works. I just picked it up Wednesday. And I said, you want to meet my doctor? Y'all can talk about this. And so I don't know, so anyway, they came together, and I asked a couple of leaders in our church to form, excuse the pun, a little dance team to help me get healthy again. And they did. As for me, my my depression in my case, and there's different kinds of depression, just like there's different kinds of cancer. So I'm not diagnosing anybody. I don't think we should diagnose each other unless we're trained. But mine was preventable. I basically burned myself out, ignored it, and pushed the gas pedal harder. So my burnout led to depression. And for me, it took a while to get into it. It took a while to get out of it, but I did. I came out healthier and pastored there for another 5 years, which I would look back on my 5 favorite years of pastoral ministry, were after I was diagnosed and got health. And I eventually told my church a few months later, and I wasn't afraid they'd fire me. I was afraid they'd pity me. And they didn't. They poured out. They started coming down the aisles. I mean, it's a Baptist church downtown, and hugging me and crying. It was really weird. But a bonding happened because I became vulnerable and real to them. But more importantly, I became healthy. I eventually shared my story, and I've done it on dozens and dozens of podcasts like this, and the story has been written so that we can blow the stigma out. But whether it's physical health, mental health, or whatever, self-care is strategic. It's not selfish. And it helps not just you, but it helps the people around you. Because I wasn't gonna fix myself. I needed people to help me get healthy again. And that path, instead of it closing doors on my ministry, it actually opened doors that have led to this week.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That's great. We mentioned kind of your journey. You've held a lot of leadership positions. Of course, you mentioned pastoring, planted a church too, I believe you said.
Yeah.
Of course, then Lifeway, some convention work, Godstone, then here. What would be, and you may have already really shared those, what would be a couple of principles that you've learned over the years that continue to guide your leadership?
I think the main principle that I've already mentioned is just the prioritizing the relationships. But part of the great commandment that gets overlooked is the last word in the first commandment, which is self, right? So, loving God, loving your neighbor as yourself. And I want to clarify that that's not the kind of self-love that the secular society is talking about. We're not talking about Dr. Phil or Dr. Oz or Dr. Seuss or anything weird. What I'm talking about is soul care. The word self and person is often translated soul. It's the same word, and it's something that we've given stewardship over. And so what has become a life message for me is to help pastors get and stay healthy. They're going to have to lead themselves before they lead their family or their ministries. And that too is bound up in the original great commandment in Deuteronomy 6, is put this word, love the Lord with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, strength. Put this first on your heart. So it starts with you, and then your home. Then you put it up on the doorposts and all that stuff, and then you go out to the gates. So that kind of concentric circle is embedded through the New Testament and the Old Testament. It starts with me. I have to lead me before I can lead other people. And if I can't lead me, I can't lead my family. And if I can't lead my family, I'm not qualified in our profession to lead a ministry. And we're the only profession on the planet that requires that, we manage our home well, that I've ever heard of. Mm-hmm. And so all this is strategic missionally as well, is because if I'm the devil, I would want to shut us down in the heart, because we'll never get to the gates if we haven't put a guard on our heart.
That's awesome. We know that there are issues facing our churches and our denomination as Southern Baptist today, challenges that we face. And as a pastor, I've learned that there's a couple of ways you can approach challenges. You can approach them as a problem, and you got a way you deal with that if you say this is a problem, or you can look at that as an opportunity, a missional opportunity. What do you see as those main challenges that are facing Arkansas Baptist churches, facing our convention today, and what do you see as missional opportunities those challenges present to us?
Yeah, well, the Southern Baptist Convention is as a whole. It's the biggest family, the biggest non-Catholic family in the nation. And the bigger the family, the more weirdos you're going to have, right? I mean, we don't only have crazy uncles, we have crazy nephews and crazy siblings. And there's so many of us that, and usually what the press picks up on are the hot mic points, the things that would make you want to look twice. What they don't see and report are the 450 people who gave their life to Jesus, or those marriages that were restored. They don't see what we're doing behind the scenes. They don't see the largest missionary force, 7,500 missionaries or 25,000 seminary students and all that. And those are things that excite me. I'm not going to let anybody steal my joy. No one can steal my joy without my permission. So even as we approach the annual meeting in a couple of weeks, and there's always some concern. Somebody we don't know is going to say something we don't, that could disrupt the flow. But the fact is, even if that happens, Arkansas is the kind of spiritual soil that can create an ongoing harvest, and is creating one, not just in events like one day, but all throughout the year on college campuses. We are seeing a revival fire spread that only God can get credit for. We're seeing marriages restored. We're seeing all kinds of wonderful things happen. And I'm not saying just look at the positive things and not deal with the others. Let's deal with problems as they come up and deal with them as the Bible teaches us. So if I'm hearing a problem from you for the first time from a microphone at a business meeting, then somebody took a shortcut, right?
That's right.
And so, that kind of culture, if allowed, becomes the norm. It's not the norm in Arkansas. And it's not the norm throughout the convention, because in my last 11 years, I've been in just about all the conventions. I've spoken at all the seminaries in this last year, all the SBC seminaries plus 6 more seminaries or colleges. And I can tell you what God's doing is remarkably more important and exciting than some of the dust-ups that happen. But the dust-ups are the ones that get in the paper, right? So the reason I'm saying that is because I don't want the listener to think that if they go online, what they see there is the whole story. They just see the parts of the story that are getting shared, and social media snipers are dialing in on. And let's deal with the real problems as they come up. Most of them are relational problems and communication problems, not deep theology problems. And so, but let's deal with them as they come up, and deal with them as a family should deal with it, especially a faith family.
Well, as we begin to put an end on this episode, how can our listeners be praying for you today?
Well, that I'll practice what I preach.
Yeah.
I mean, I've never in my life had more opportunities to say yes, and so I have to use the same discipline, because I have the same limits, and every year I have more birthdays instead of less. And so I don't just want to finish my ministry with my testimony intact. I want to finish well. I want to accelerate through the finish line instead of just falling over it. And so, in the next decade or less, I want to encourage as many pastors and church leaders as I can, starting with the staff here in the Arkansas Convention building. I want to ask you to pray that God would protect me from me. I'm the biggest challenge to my ministry, and to protect my family from the enemy, and to protect our convention staff as well from the same things. Because some of us serve off stage, away from cameras and microphones, and are serving the Lord with gladness, but they're on the same army that the rest of us are in. And so if I'm the enemy and I have a limited number of flaming arrows to send, I'd launch them at the leaders. So I'd like to, personally request prayer for protection against the enemy and against myself, and that God would stir up in me revival fires that I'm seeing everywhere else, that I want to not just observe and fan the flames of others, but I want that same flame to be growing in my own heart, so that I'm still growing, and as I'm helping other people to grow.
Awesome. And listeners, I'd just say now's a good time. Maybe hit the pause if you're able to, and take just a few moments and do just that, and pray for Dr. Dance at this point, and pray for leadership here at the Arkansas Baptist State Convention, and then hit resume and come back and join us in just a few moments. So, Dr. Dance, I want to give you the last word. Well, really, it's not the last word, because Clint's going to have a few fun questions to ask in just a moment.
Okay.
But I do want to give you a last word. What additional word of encouragement would you like to leave with our listeners? Anything that you haven't covered so far?
My word of encouragement would be to ask your spouse this hard question at the right time. How are we doing? How are we doing? Because your ministry is not going to be stronger than your marriage. And sometimes as pastors and ministry leaders, we have a tendency to unintentionally exaggerate the health of our marriage and of our church and so forth. And so if you want to know how your marriage is doing, then let me challenge you to ask your spouse, how are we doing? And then, this is the big part, don't say anything for at least 3 or 4 minutes. All right? Don't interrupt. Don't get defensive. Just be affirming, and make sure that there's real communication going on. As it might not be exactly as good as you thought, but it probably won't be as bad as it should be. There'll be a lot of grace in that conversation if you're a good listener. But the best pastors are good listeners, not just good speakers, and the best husbands likewise. So try that, and if it doesn't go well, call Sam's cell phone.
Yeah, we'll connect you to Living Well Counseling
Yes,
across
yes.
Arkansas. Yes. All right. Well, Dr. Dance, thanks for joining us. We need to get to know you a little better. Some deep theological questions that we ask all of our listeners.
Okay.
We say rapid fire, but usually we get off base and talk about some of them. But anyway, favorite meal?
My favorite meal is fresh venison that I have harvested.
Come on.
Yes, grilled, not fried, although I'll eat them either way. Grilled backstrap.
And so a lot of pastors just wrote down wild game dinner, invite him to speak. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Favorite restaurant?
Probably in Conway, it's Mike's Place, which is kind of a high-end Cajun. I love me some grouper, pecan-encrusted grouper, or some, some catfish with crawfish on etouffee on top of it. Anything with Cajun is going to be the top of my list.
Where is your go-to relaxation spot?
Man, anywhere there's a white oak tree and a food plot, that's my green pastures. I've been a bow hunter for the last 20 years, and there's nothing I like more than a fall breeze in an oak tree somewhere with deer just kind of running around, or any critters for that matter.
Besides the Bible, what's your favorite book?
Well, mine, of course. I just read it over and over again. No, I think one of my favorites is now probably would be a classic, "Secrets of the Vine" by Bruce Wilkinson. Is one of the favorites. Talks about abiding in Christ, and that you extends that metaphor of the vine, and we are the branches. That'd probably be my top. That would be the top one.
This could be a trick question. What's your favorite podcast?
Wow, that's it's got to be your podcast is my favorite today. Is my favorite podcast.
All right, next question. Yeah, thank you.
Next question. Next
Everybody
question.
struggle with that
Don't
question.
give him time to
That's
think.
right. Yeah,
Next question.
yeah. Favorite genre of music?
Oh, classic rock. Yeah, yeah. I listen to Jesus music on the way to work, and it's all Bon Jovi or Boston on the way home. That's where I'm most vulnerable to getting a speeding ticket, by the way.
What's the first concert you attended?
Oh man, it's the first. This ever attended as a Christian or as a non-Christian? Well, as a group called Hobbit, and Bad Company. Those were, they were together in the first concert I remember. And ironically, one of the first Christian concerts was Petra, and the lead singer was a former singer of Bad Company. And so, anyway, I've always liked rock music. When I first heard Christian rock music, Res Band was the first real rock music I heard, and I almost wept as I listened to the intro to Colors album, because I didn't know that at that point there weren't a lot of great music coming out of the Christian world, but it's getting better and better.
What's your favorite place to visit?
Alberta, Canada. Yeah, my wife is a backpacker. She's hiked just about every part of Arkansas that can be hiked. And, Alberta is her favorite place. So I've backpacked with her there, as have some others, and also occasionally hunt up there. And I've done several ministry events there. Yeah. Alberta is a wonderful place. The northern part, southern part. That's my favorite.
And last, certainly not the least important, but what's your favorite sport?
I actually played tennis in high school and college. Not a lot of people know that, and some adult leagues. And then when I moved to Arkansas 20 years ago, tennis was not as big a sport here as it was in Texas and some other places. And so that's probably the top sport in terms of participation. I enjoy watching football more than anything else in terms of something I could never do. I have a tennis body, and so that didn't work out on the football field. So, but I like to watch other people play football, but I like to play tennis probably more than any other sport.
Awesome. Well, Dr. Adance, we are so glad that you stopped by to visit with us for a few minutes today.
Privilege.
And share with our listeners. One thing we can say about the podcast today, it's been fun.
There you go.
It's been fun. Thank you so much for being here. Until next time, guys, we're praying for you to keep Jesus first in your life. Keep those priorities. Great commandment, great commission flows out of that great commandment. And we'll see you next time on Mission Eyes.
Thanks for joining the Missions Guys today. If you liked what you heard, rate and review us on your favorite podcasting platform. And to keep up with what is happening in Arkansas Missions, visit absc.org/missions.